This is an overview of the second midterm study guide, so let's get started. Question 1 is from chapter 7. Define social stratification and social inequality and give examples of each. Recall that there is a difference between social inequality and social stratification. Make sure you review that so that you can define them and then give examples of each of them. Discuss how the functionalist, conflict, and symbolic interactionist perspectives analyze social stratification. So remember, the functionalist perspective is looking at social stratification as having some positive outcomes for society. Conflict perspective, of course, is looking at social stratification as having some negative outcomes for society, and symbolic interactionist perspective is focusing on how social stratification influences the way that we interact with one another, how we perceive each other, etc. So make sure that you're going into detail as you discuss how each of these perspectives analyzes social stratification. Explain in detail how socioeconomic status affects the following: family, health, education, work, and income. I did give you some pages there to take a look at for review. Do you believe that meritocracy exists in the US? Remember that meritocracy is the idea that everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed. That as long as you work hard and get educated and do all the things that society says you should do, that you will have success. Do you believe that that is true? Does it exist for everyone? Give 2 examples to support your opinion. Chapter 6 is for question number 2. Explain in detail how the functionalist, conflict, and symbolic interactionist perspectives analyze deviance. Okay, so remember, functionalist perspective is looking at the possibility that when people engage in deviant behavior, there could be some positive outcomes. That's outlined in the text. Conflict theory, of course, is looking at how we define deviance and how people in power typically are defining deviance in such a way that laws are made that work mostly against people who are not like them. So again, thinking about power and how laws are created. Symbolic interactionist perspective is focusing on how society, how individuals perceive and then interact with people who are considered to be deviant. So make sure you're providing examples to support your discussion. Analyze how social class, race, gender, and age are related to crime and provide details to support the discussion. Again, I gave you some page numbers to look at. Explain the concept of rehabilitation in the American criminal justice system and compare it with how it is used in Scandinavia. Okay, so explain the concept of rehabilitation. Explain what we do here in the US to promote rehabilitation, and then compare that with how rehabilitation is done in Scandinavia. Do you think Americans would support adopting the Scandinavian system in the US? Give specific examples to support your opinion. Question 3 is from chapter 8. Discuss how the functionalist, conflict, and symbolic interactionist perspectives analyze race in the US. Again, remember, functionalist perspective, functionalist theorists are looking at race, perhaps having some positive outcomes, how we use race in the US. Conflict perspective will be looking at power and how race is used to perhaps create power differentials. And symbolic interactionist perspective, again, focusing on how race influences or shapes, that concept of race influences or shapes the way that we interact with others, how we think about them, etc. Explain the difference between individual and institutional discrimination and give examples of both. Explain in detail 3 of the 6 characteristics that may affect a person's life chances. Take a look at those pages listed there and choose 3 of those characteristics and explain with some examples, with some detail, how these characteristics can affect a person's life chances. Define reverse racism and discuss whether you think it exists in the US. Okay. Provide at least 2 reasons for your opinion. Finally, question 4 is from chapter 9. Explain how the feminist, functionalist, conflict, and symbolic interactionist perspectives analyze gender inequality. In your opinion, why hasn't the US elected a female president yet? Explain your analysis. Remember that there are many countries, both westernized and those that are not westernized, that have elected female heads of state in the past and currently have female heads of state. And some of these places are much less progressive, typically, than the US, or at least than we think we are. And so, what do you think is the reason why we haven't elected a female president yet, when so many other countries have done it, and not just westernized countries? Discuss at least 2 agents of gender socialization that have influenced your gender roles and explain whether you want to change this influence or not, and why. Right? So remember, the important thing is to provide details, provide examples to support your opinions. Don't just make a statement and then move on to the next statement. I expect these to be substantive, meaning that your answers have examples and details that they explain to me so that I don't have to guess what you mean by something.